So welcome to Living Conversations, brought to you by Living Bankside. I'm Joseph Bonner, and with me is
Thomas Innes.
And joining us today is Neil Coyle, MP, who is Labour politician and MP for Bermondsey and Old Southwark. Neil has represented the constituency since 2015, following his predecessor and former guest on this podcast, Sir Simon Hughes. So this seems like a good time to also remind listeners right at the start that Living Bankside and these conversations, that we are apolitical as an organisation. We're very keen to engage all of our friends from all the different parties. So without further ado, Neil, thank you very much for joining us, or let us join you, I should say, here in your constituency office.
It's glamorous constituency office.
It's a bit hot in here, so we've taken our jackets off. But just going back a little bit into your earlier life and your career before politics, tell us a little bit about Neil and where he came from, family, and so on, and maybe what from all of that led you into a role in politics.
The short version, Mum and Dad had four of us in Luton, and Mum had sort of sudden impact schizophrenia. So I don't remember Mum not being ill, but she's been ill as long as I can remember. Rather strange upbringing with her condition, but made me realise from a very young age that things could be organised differently to better support families in situations like mine. It's not as rare as some people think. One of my brothers left school to look after Mum and Dad separated, and you know, Mum's had some very some terrible experiences with mental health care and outside, but one of my brothers became a carer, left school to look after her. So just seeing how schools, how mental health services, how local authority support could be different, sort of made me more policy aware, which made me more politically aware. And I joined the Labour Party as a teenager, and I have to say the rest is history. It's not. You know, I moved into Southwark in 2005, I think it was. Joined the party here. I was already a member, but just got more active in the local party here. Was elected to Southwark Council in 2010. Enjoyed my spell as deputy mayor. There are still very fetching images of Bishop Christopher and I in our purple robes. Who wore it better?
They're great occasions.
Wonderful days.
Induction ceremonies.
And I won Bermondsey and Old Southwark in the 2015 elections. So 4 elections since have seen me returned with a swing to me each time, which is unusual and testament, I hope, to the hard work I and my team put in trying to serve people from these amazing facilities that the taxpayer funds from. I rent from Southwark Council, but yes, apologies, it's so hot for you both.
Quite all right.
We'll persevere. Well, thank you for that. So you've been a lifelong, it would seem, adult anyway, lifelong Labour member or Labour advocate. There was no doubt about which party you would adopt.
Well, yeah, when I joined, I think it was 15. I can't remember now. But anyway, it was, you know, the Tories have been in government a long time, and actually we've seen in recent history, you know, the 14 years what they chose to do in office, rolling back support, cutting services. It's you know, families like mine were made to struggle more. We've seen the poverty levels. One of the things that goes underreported nationally, in my opinion, is that in just 2 years we've seen food bank demand drop under this Labour government. When Labour left office in 2010, there were 60,000 Trussell Trust parcels of support delivered to people across the country. After the Conservatives and Lib Dem administrations, it was 3.1 million by Trussell Trust alone. They're now Trussell. They provide the secretariat to the food bank group I run in Parliament. We were talking about those figures this week. We saw, you know, 2 food banks close in this borough as a result of some of the measures we've managed to introduce in just 2 years, and that's before the more significant impact of the child benefit changes. So there will be further drop in demand, and trusts are looking at how do they adapt into reallocating spare food from supermarkets and other agencies. You know, how will their role evolve because the food bank demand is dropping, which is a positive situation for society, but as a charity, it presents them a situation that just they've not had until now. So, sorry, I think I've come off your question.
No. It shows you're right in the heart of the issues affecting constituents, and whatever party you're from or represented or interested in, or no party, it's a sad state, isn't it, that here in London, in central London, you have a state in a nation
in
as
this
wealthy
office,
as we are, that you're dealing with food bank issues.
And I ran an emergency food bank from the office in 2017. There are emergency food bank items in this office now for people to collect if they could present to me in a way that shows they need it. We had a lady on Friday. It's still happening, but to a lower degree than was actually. And in the manifesto in 2024, which Bermondsey and Old Southwark constituents chose before, it describes food bank demand as a moral scar, and I agree, and I want to see it come down further. So I'll keep working. Even on the bits that government might be more reluctant to change, I'll be pushing on some of the policy areas. So.
And I know you're active on social media, and we'll maybe get into that. Did you have a bit of a response to Jacob Rees-Mogg recently on food banks, or is that something more historic I'm thinking of? I think we invited
some time ago. I think
you invited
I
him
have,
to come here.
Yeah.
Maybe it was historic. Maybe it's me reading your Wikipedia entry, I think, and it came into my mind.
Yeah, well, there were fanatics who update that, but he made some derogatory comments about why people were using them as sort of free meal rather than need, and I think that was missing. So I genuinely, I will try and get people to understand where it comes from, rather than just be dismissive and or make false claims about what, because trust will keep all the record for why people are in the situations that mean they are using food banks, and other. There are independent. Some are more freer about how they provide food, and Vimmel, who you know, the Rotherhithe Community Kitchen, they don't make any. There's no requirement on why you need it. So there are some independents who, but Trust will keep good records and logs. So the data is there. If anyone has a genuine interest and wants to address the issue, I'm not sure Jacob ever was in that group.
Well, as we know,
he's always welcome.
Some people just like making the comment to be provocative or to appeal to their own followers, perhaps. But we look forward to seeing him come down to SE1.
I'll ask him to do an interview. Okay?
I'm sure he'll accept. I'm sure he will.
I think he probably would. He's very polite in person. His politics are very disagreeable, but he's a very agreeable person.
Very polite.
Yeah.
I also remembered, now I've mentioned Wikipedia, that was it after school or after university you took yourself off to China, which was news to me. That's not untrue. You did go there. What tempted it? Were you in your teens or?
When I finished uni, I was 21, I think. I don't know about you. When you're at uni, you have chats about where would you like to go anywhere in the world.
Plenty of them.
I'm looking at some who may have been at university more recently than us.
Fresher.
I hadn't noticed. No clue.
We're all in our 20s.
You'll go far.
But you have those conversations, and actually a lot of friends. It was always America, but America never didn't massively appeal. And I chose to go and live and work in China to immerse myself in a completely different culture. I learned some Mandarin. And I had a great time. I can still navigate food and transport and the basics, but and I still have a lot of family there because I went over. My dad, my younger brother, my sister, 2 cousins all came at different points. One of my cousins still lives in Beijing. I have a brother in Suzhou. Who else is over there still? One of my brother's ex-wife and daughter in Shanghai. So I have family scattered in China, and I chair the British Chinese Council as a result of my family and personal background. And of course, we have a Hong Kong community growing in Canada Water, and we have a Chinese community at the Elephant Castle as well. So largely students rather than the Hong Kongs who are here to settle as BNO, who are facing communist persecution. And of course, the China I witnessed was entering WTO, was more positively engaging on the international stage, and it has changed dramatically under Xi Jinping, who's taken it on a much more aggressive and assertive agenda. So,
who knew when you went off there that one day you'd be then as an MP in London, building relationships with diaspora Chinese in your own constituency.
And it does, especially with restaurants and others, if I go in and can order or have a conversation and use some basic Mandarin, a small amount goes a long way, because it is so rare for Brits to speak Mandarin. So you're going to ask me to do it, aren't you?
No pressure.
No, okay.
Coming back to something a bit more local, and something which we worked with you, I think, from the very first year of the Great Get Together, which all was inspired by the late Jo Cox, who of course you knew. You sat next to her in Parliament when she made that famous speech. Amazing speech, much quoted, about more in common. What does that message mean to you now?
So Jo and I don't think I met Jo in person before we were elected, but with surnames so alphabetically close and our offices close. But also we did pieces together on the campaigning to remain in the European Union, as well as on the importance of Labour campaigning enough on that. We did a piece together for The Guardian, I think it was. It's 10 years. And I do worry, as I said at the event, the events are always positive and amazing, and people come together and it's beautiful. And I think we have a really special event here. I know it's one of the biggest, and I know that the foundation, the Great Gets It, they know they can always rely on the Southwark community to have a fantastic, to give a fantastic recognition to Jo's life and positivity. But I do worry that we're 10 years on and the public discourse and debate has got more aggressive, and social media has played a significant role in that. Anne Widdecombe's murder, which we don't know the full details of, but it was a targeted murder. So it seems likely that her persona, her beliefs have shaped whatever it was that led that man to do that. So there is clearly still a challenge and a problem in our polity, how we are doing politics, and how we are structuring debate, and it's become less pleasant. And I don't want my team to be spending time wading through the abuse that you get online. If you retweet anything from Sadiq Khan, you get the anti, Islamophobic vitriol that you get, and the scale of it is offensive. I know that a lot of that is paid actors, Russian and Iran-induced fake accounts. I know that. But when someone goes on my Facebook page or my doctored Wikipedia, do they know that there are others who are trying to distort debate in order to sow division and hate in a way that certainly contributed to Jo's murder? And whilst the family, who you know as well, have always wanted to focus on the positive, personally, I think we should have been clearer from the start, his motivations, not naming him, not giving him any spotlight, but we could and should have done more to challenge why he did what he did, and the politics in that, because challenging it then might have helped prevent some of where we've got to today. And Prevent has a role in all of this. Anyone who becomes fixated or on the violence side there should be earlier interventions. I've made interventions on this in Westminster. I think we'll see progress now, but it shouldn't take attack after attack before we get to a point where it's accepted that debate needs rationalising and there have to be parameters.
And of course, there was also David Amos, sitting MP, murdered in his constituency, and other attacks, quite serious. And I'm sure there's lots of others that aren't even reported, or intimidation. Does that cause you fear for yourself, fear for family or staff?
We've had threats. We've had an office a door panel broken. We've had stuff thrown in. We've had threats to firebomb the office, threats to stab me. It's been, and everything is passed to the police to make the assessment. It's their job to decide whether it's a serious attack and where it comes from, because they can track where someone has put. Usually it's online, where they have made the comment from to ascertain risk levels, to help ascertain risk levels. So if there are any threats here, my job is to protect my team, and there were 3 floors of people's homes above my office, so I couldn't ignore a threat to firebomb the office, because that's a threat to to my constituents, whether I want to stay or not. I still try to be as accessible as possible. This office, the small team here help 500 people a month, right? So that's people coming to the door whenever the office is open. I'm here on a Friday afternoon. We still try to do open door surgery. The police are increasingly concerned that is too, makes you too much of a target. But all MPs now are going to be told we must seek security for our surgeries wherever they are. So here on a Friday, I do community surgeries. I've got one coming up in a mosque. I've got one in Dockland Settlement. I think that's next week. There are different, and that's where I write to the nearest streets and tell them I'm coming and advertise in a way to try and to make sure that. I mean, I've even done it on the Kirby estate, which is, a 5-minute walk from here. I take the gazebo, put it in the car park, wrote to everyone saying I was coming. Even though this office is so close, that was one of the busier surgeries. People came down because I was there, easy to see. Yeah. So it does make a difference. Yeah. And every Friday morning, I and my team do mobile surgery, where you just knock doors and see, and increasingly people working from home, pensioners, students, whoever it might be. So I do try to be as accessible as possible, but there is...
It's attention, isn't it? Accessibility and security.
Yeah, and I don't want to be inaccessible. Yeah. That's not helpful to me in trying to reach and help other people. But and some of the idiots who do make silly threats and comments should, it would be nice if they were if it was able to constantly. They always hide behind anonymous accounts, but to reach them and explain why it's damaging and what they're preventing. We have protests outside this office as well from people who don't live in the constituency. Go and tell your MP. Don't interrupt my constituents trying to reach me for me to be able to help. Whatever your belief is, whatever the issue is. One, send an email, it's easier. But two, do it to the right person. The basics.
And the other longer term problem too is it's not really an incentive for people to actually think, well, I could be a candidate for a councillor role or a...
There are people who put off, and women are put off.
Well, or to be an MP, when you think, well, you could be targeted, alone could be a distress, and ultimately you could be murdered. It's not really a great billboard, is it, to say, come and help become a parliamentarian?
No, which is why we need to more to educate and to prevent some of the targets that, because women MPs now, women MPs, like Jo and I talked about how that article we did together, she got all of the abuse by phone call. Men were phoning her office to tell her to shut up, basically. I didn't get men phoning me. But now, because of the shift in technology, women MPs are targeted with, sort of fake porn, the deep fake imagery. It's hideous, and just scrapping that and stepping in. The government is legislating to better protect from that. And we know where some of the investment in this comes from outside of this country. It's part of the same threat to some degree. But that attempt to humiliate women MPs can't be tolerated, and is another deterrent for some people taking up or seeking to stand for office.
So you think it's maybe starting with schools, school age?
Yeah, I've supported better civic education, and when I go into schools, I try to explain the difference between councils and MPs and things, and encourage people to be involved. At St Michael's College around the corner recently, 17 of the students asked to do work experience at the end of a short session, which is the best ever. Creates
a pipeline of volunteers.
Creates a difficulty in a small space like this in my parliamentary office, but we can do 2 in each and swap around and things. But I want to give young people the opportunity to see what it's really like, to tackle some of the negatives, but also show what I and other MPs are trying to achieve. And it's nice that some do turn into volunteers, brilliant activists, and want to get involved. There's one who was a councillor, someone who came in here, became a councillor. Others, joined the party, take on other roles, and it's nice to see them move on in life. Or there's one lad his parents asked for to take him in for a week, and he became a bit more focused at school, and he's now going to do a politics degree at university. If it's helping contribute to future opportunities in life, that's a good thing.
Well, just even from a baseline is actually making people aware what's the difference between a councillor, or what is the role of a councillor, and what is the role of an MP, and what do you deal with, and what you can deal with, and what problems you can help with, and where you can't.
Yeah.
So,
on the role of councillor and MP, and they're different. Obviously, you are an MP for the area, but Southwark Council has changed hands recently. Just wondering, after it was the elections that we had on May 7th, Labour had run the council for a very, very long time, but that changed hands over to the Greens and the Liberal Democrats under James McCash, Councillor James McCash, who was going to be leader under Labour, but that was overturned after you reported it to the National Executive Committee on administrative grounds. I'm just wondering, how do you feel about that result? How do you feel about the council changing hands?
So yeah, Labour, I think it was 16 years of Labour running Southwark Council. The Lib Dems ran it with the Tories for 8 years prior to that, and they're now back running it with the Greens now. They'll do a coalition with anyone. But look, I didn't report anyone to the NEC, just to be clear. The Southwark Labour broke its own rules on how they held the meetings. So he was never elected leader. Sarah King won both elections if the rules had been followed. When it was reported to me that there were problems, I asked London Labour, who oversees, a regional party oversees borough party in the capital, and they looked again, and then it went through to the national, what's called the Legal and Governance Unit. So they looked at it and they said, yeah, sorry, there's a mistake, you need to run it again. Unfortunately, James had heralded his premature success and announced it already, which wasn't supposed to happen. So, you know, if he hadn't broken the rules and then advertised the fact that he'd won by accident rather than actually winning, then there wouldn't have been a problem, and it wouldn't have been public, and it could have been resolved very easily. But it was an administrative hiccup. That's all it was. But yeah, you know, seeing him come back presents me with difficulties, and it's specifically for Living Bankside actually, because you know, he was in the cabinet previously, and one of his roles on transport was covered the Borough Market and Borough High Street, where the police and the Market Trust and businesses and others had flagged security concerns to protect people from the potential of a vehicle attack in particular. And he ignored it for 2 years. I think he's the only cabinet member I ever asked a leader to sack. Because of his failure. Because of his failure. I put that down. I see that as an incompetence rather than anything else. There was no excuse for ignoring the police advice and other advice. There's records, there's email exchanges. The trusts were banging on the door. They did their own safety. They commissioned work because the council were ignoring them. Unacceptable. The deputy, I forget his title. Anyway, when I raised it publicly in a news broadcast, the council finally acted and they put in some temporary measures which have since been firmed up with Transport for London. So equally, at this end of the constituency on Lower Road, you know, it was his role that contributed to the absolute mess the council made of Lower Road with you know, the congestion was so bad, buses couldn't finish their journeys. Tesco was losing customers. British Land were having to build things slower because of the absolute chaos on Lower Road, and he was responsible for that, and the incompetence that led to the council charging traffic management orders that were out of date, so they had to repay £250,000. So, you know, I have very significant concerns about his competence to lead the council. I hope there's a team around him that's better as leader than there was in the transport department, because clearly there were big failures and concerns. But I've asked about housing, I've asked about community safety issues. I haven't had a reply. My team are phoning the homeless line regularly because we've seen a spike in problems recently. It's not being answered. It gets cut off after 45 minutes. The most basic and essential council service has collapsed since the council changed hands. And they've just announced cutting the NEST, the mental health open door service. Instead of going through GP waiting months for a referral, you can go straight in crisis or at any point to seek support. That service being lost is not what I think people thought they might get when they voted Green, Lib Dem or Labour, frankly, in the council election. So that's disappointing to see.
Well, on NEST, they would attest that they wouldn't have the money for it because so much of it is ring-fenced and it's not a statutory service that the council needs to provide unless the money doesn't exist.
It was a funded service. It was in the budget. It's being cut in year. So this is a political choice to cut a service that was already had the budget allocated. they have to explain why they prioritise something else, that they are taking the money away from this in order to cover. It's a political choice. Same as downgrading adult social services, which is the second biggest spending department in Southwark Council. They have demoted it out of the cabinet, which, you know, if you're a business or any organisation and you need people around the table who are making the most expensive decisions to your company or organisation, and they're not in the room, I think there's problems ahead.
So it's been devolved to officials?
It's a deputy cabinet post. It's not a cabinet post anymore, despite its importance to local people in terms of where you go for help and support. But also, as I say, in terms of the budget that it's responsible for, it's a very significant figure.
And can I just say, the comments you make about Borough Market and the other transport decisions, I'm guessing all of those things you say are evidence-based.
Of course.
So has James McCash come back substantively ever to account for his actions or lack of actions?
No. When I became involved to address the issues and made it public, the council acted on the security measures, and there are, you know, the security
we've seen them
there
now
now.
in place.
So, and it's a relief that they're there now. We shouldn't have,
well, especially what's happened there.
Yeah, we've had experience. That's why it's so.
And it's still a target.
It's why it's such an abject failure, and there's just no excuse for ignoring that concern. But look, I want the council to be run well. I want people to be able to access services when they need them. I am very nervous, both on his personal background, but also from what I've seen since the new administration took over, that that's not what we're getting already. So, and it's also a fragile coalition. And of course, you know, I think the majority is 2, and the Greens are saying they're not going to run a whip, so good luck with that. But look, the biggest issue people come here for is also housing, and developers are saying, these artificial thresholds that they've suggested they can impose on developments can't be delivered. So we're just not going to, 1, we'll ignore Southwark, we'll go elsewhere. But 2, we won't do the community engagement, we won't do the proper Southwark work. We will put a skeleton application in, and then we'll fight it out in the legal stages afterwards. We'll go
in the planning
elsewhere.
committee.
So we'll go to the planning inspectorate, to City Hall, to potentially to government for larger schemes. That's not good for us because we lose our leverage in Southwark. Southwark Labour were leveraging in job opportunities, apprenticeships. The new sports centres have been built as part of that. Look at the Elephant Castle now, some social housing on the former private land, funding for escalators, the Northern Line. You know, all these come as extras by engaging, and if they don't engage, then we will all lose out as a result of their failure to accept that their thresholds are self-defeating, but most importantly to the people who are on the waiting list who need the homes.
This is fair. These are all questions of policy. They're important questions of policy, but they're questions of policy on the personal. In your letter to James McCash, you called him and colleagues that were in the party Marxists.
He calls himself a Marxist.
Refers to himself as a
Marxist. Yeah. In fact, when he wanted to stand for leader when he was in the Labour Party, because he's always wanted to be leader, he's very clear in his own ambition. I don't have a problem with ambition. The Labour Party is the most ambitious for everyone of any political party, but his own Twitter said he was a Marxist. And when he came to my office to pitch for leader, I asked him about communism. He said he wasn't a communist, he was a Marxist. And he spent longer on the distinction than he did on telling me how he would improve our borough for local people. And that was the most fascinating part of our discussion for me.
You were seeing red flags.
Perhaps.
Indeed, more so than I did when I was in China. I've lived under a communist state, and I know the restrictions it can impose on people. And look, I mentioned Hong Kong.
Yeah.
You know, I know what authoritarian regimes do, and gullible people get sucked into that kind of ideology. It's never been my interest. I think my route into politics being from a practical family basis, I'm interested in the pragmatics. I want to see things that work, not ideological solutions developed 150 years ago.
Are you confident you can work constructively with the new council?
I will do, whatever I can to make things, to improve things for local people. That's my job. That's I don't doubt that. I hope that they need to also be self-aware in this, because those artificial thresholds. I thought it was interesting actually, the Old Kent Road opportunity area statement that council have come out with. They're already having to compromise on this. Maybe they're growing up fast. I don't know, but Do I think he's the best person to lead the council? No, absolutely not. But look, I will be asking my government to fund more social housing in London. I believe we need that. So if Southwark Council want to work with me on that, I will continue to support the Bakerloo Line extension, and I need the council to stay in support of that. I want to improve community safety, which is one of the reasons I raised the nighttime uniform patrol team in my letter to James Case. They haven't decided whether that team will continue. That team is out there helping tackle drug problems, helping tackle nighttime problems on estates that many in Bankside may not see on a routine basis, but they are big problems, and that team has had some significant successes working really closely with the police and council. My job is to make sure that as much is done to make people's lives better. Cutting that team won't help.
Well, it's fair to say that you don't have much confidence in the leadership of Southwark Council, but onto the slightly bigger leadership question, the one marring the Parliamentary Labour Party at the moment. Stepping back just a little bit, after Keir Starmer stepped down, you weren't particularly pleased. Do you think it was right that he stepped down at the moment that he did?
Well, it was right for him because I think he would have been drawn into a leadership contest that I don't think he perhaps would have won. And look, what's been fascinating as Labour MPs, there's 1,000 Labour Party members in this community just at north of the borough, who, it's fair to say, were concerned we weren't always on the front foot in communications. You can read further into that, I hope. We needed to do better. We needed to communicate better. But they went very quickly from this isn't good enough to, I'm trying not to swear here, WTAF is going on. Why are people behaving like this? Keir is respected, if not loved. He has worked hard and he has brought the Labour Party from a very low point in 2019 right through to here. I wish, there's no one in the Labour Party who doesn't want Andy Burnham to do well. I think he'll be a better communicator. If I look for positives, I think he'll have a better team around him. I think he'll listen to other MPs more than Keir did. Keir was a little bit disinterested in other politicians, in the public view of politicians. Maybe there's some healthy differences.
Well, he came to politics quite late in life, interestingly.
Yeah, and actually his strength against Boris Johnson was that he was serious and not a politician. And his weakness in office was he was too serious and not a politician. It was the change in everything around him, the changing context was what undid him. And
I read something today, actually, that Boris Johnson led his party to a landslide election and had to leave office two years later. And the same thing now
of course, Boris really
has happened to Keir Starmer.
But Boris shot to prominence as London Mayor, just as Andy Burnham has gained significant prominence as Manchester. The Metro Mayors are forced to be
doing all right, aren't they?
Devolution. That's Tony Blair to thank.
It's Blair's legacy.
We'll get on to devolution, certainly. We all want Andy Burnham to do well, obviously. It's in all of our best interest that he does well. But within the Parliamentary Labour Party, he received 369 nominations. That's a great many members of the team. There was one individual who did not nominate Andy Burnham and nominated instead Catherine West, who famously set Starmer an ultimatum earlier this year. And that was yourself, Mr. Coyle. Can I ask why you nominated Catherine West?
Constituents following my political career will know I've never been afraid to be different, and I've never been afraid to speak up where I believe it's necessary. And I did that under Jeremy Corbyn to raise significant concerns. I am proud of the work I did to try and better protect the Jewish community in this part of London and elsewhere by challenging Jeremy Corbyn head on. He still does not acknowledge the damage he did to the Labour Party.
Why was this nomination necessary?
So Catherine wanted a contest, and look, I have in each of the leadership contests I've nominated a woman. I nominated Mary Cray, I nominated Jess Phillips, and I nominated Catherine West. Labour members say they want a woman leader. My conscience is clear.
Very well.
Did you back Jeremy once?
So Mary Cray withdrew. Yes. And some of us came under a lot of pressure. So I did nominate, whilst I never voted or supported Jeremy Corbyn. I was, in fact, look, we talked about self-awareness before. The worst political decision I've ever made was that nomination. The damage it led to, the damage it did the party, and including with Brexit, because Corbyn supported it. He wanted out of the European Union. He didn't do enough as Labour leader, and that's damaged our country and opportunities. If there's one thing I regret in politics the most, that single nomination is it, by a massive margin.
This was a very close contest at the time, the nomination of Corbyn, or it was in the earlier stages. This one,
not as close this time.
This one's not been. In
Which
any
again
capacity.
made it an easy, sort of registered, small protest of my own.
You mentioned as Starmer stepped down that you wanted to see a contest. You wanted to see how do you feel now that hasn't materialised and it really is a Burnham coronation?
Look, week's a long time in politics. I wish Andy well. I have been. Look, we've had Brexit, we've had Corbyn, we've had COVID, it's been an eventful decade. Joe's murder we've already talked about. 3 political murders, politically motivated murders. But the most shocking thing in the last month or so has been how some of my colleagues behaved. And maybe this says more about whether I'm a politician enough or not. But to see people who I know don't want him to be leader suddenly curling in behind him and doing everything to try and engineer a job. It's the bit of politics that I think the public hate the most. It's the bit I find is the bit I can engage in least. I will always try and get the best for this constituency. It's lucky I have the best job. I serve the best community in the best borough, best city in the country. But I'll be honest. I wish I could lean in a bit to some of this. I wish I could be less impulsive and bite my lip a bit more. But I actually don't think that's what my constituents want, if I'm honest. And I do think that people who say one thing one week and another week. I mean, usually they live them. But one thing one week. Sorry, yeah, I know you're apolitical. I can't resist.
Well, I can lend you a little bit here. I mean, the liberty of the Cling, on the South Bank,
Yes.
Going back many years.
Indeed.
It was different. You didn't have all the laws you had for theatre and so on that you had on the north side. So maybe you're leaning into that sort of history.
The proud, rebellious history of the South Bank.
Perhaps,
slightly baudier nature than the city regulations. But look, we are where we are. I want Andy to do well. I think there's some positive steps there. The economy grew again last month as well, which is announced today. So, I think there's some solid foundations to build on. I think he'll communicate better. I think people will miss Keir, and I think the respect, the growth again of the UK reputation on the international stage under Keir and under Rachel as Chancellor. I think some of my colleagues will miss that quickly, and I really do dislike the way the politicians sort of looking in it for themselves. They want a job and they're prepared to back someone even if they don't really believe.
Is that what you put the Burnham landslide down to then, as opposed to?
Some of them, yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, they're on the record themselves. Many of them saying they didn't think he'd to it.
It's quite a few.
Well, yeah, but equally, you've got to look at that figure and think, well, 379. I think 20 something didn't nominate anyone, which the glorious abstentions. But I've nominated Catherine. She didn't believe me, by the way, when I told her I nominated her. She thought I was teasing. She thought I was winding her up.
You never know, you might get that call Monday from the number 10 switch.
If Catherine becomes Minister for London, that's that nomination that sealed it.
That's you. That's all you.
The tradition is that a leader will recognise any contender.
We've got to publish this interview before next Monday. Then we've got a date specific.
Are you expecting to arrive at number 10 on Monday? Are you expecting a ministerial?
Not at number 10. No. Look, if Andy Bennett picks up or any of his team, and look, why would I not want to serve and do more? If I can secure anything more for this constituency community, then that's my job. Equally, serving this community is a privilege. I know that. I was. The last election followed having been suspended. I had my own spell out of the party. It wasn't a given that I'd be restanding for the Labour Party. So I was very, I am lucky. I stopped drinking, and if I hadn't, I could have killed those. I'm lucky with my health. I'm lucky with this role. I have a lot to be thankful for in life. I have a beautiful daughter, and being a minister, great. Yep, happy to do it if I'm asked, but I'm very happy with the job I have.
Happy as an MP. And speaking of, would you stay on? Obviously, 29 or whenever the next election is a while away, but would you be looking to remain a Labour MP?
Yeah, we've already been asked to submit our papers if we want to re-stand by the National Party. So my local party will have to nominate or reselect me rather. As in this room, I don't think it's an exclusive, but yes, my intention is to stand at least one more term.
Very nice.
2 terms in government, hopefully. Depends on the electorate elsewhere. We have a big fight with reform in the next election. I think people don't realise quite what is at stake. And, you know, if leaving the EU has caused heightened division and a rise in hate and other things, imagine what a reform government could do. I fear for this community if we don't have a Labour government continue at the next election.
Have you? Obviously, these are very terrible things that could be on the horizon. But do you have an optimistic case for constituents and for residents and for the people of the city where you think they can be really hopeful about either the new Prime Minister, however you see it going? Are there things to look forward to here?
Well, look, in just 2 years, we've seen a 24% drop in Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital's waiting list, right? Just our local hospital trust alone. We've got an increase in police. The police have just told me that they've reduced the robbery numbers for the first time in years. The food bank numbers we've already talked about are dropping significantly. Social housing is beginning to be built, not fast enough. I know we need to speed up on that, which again is why I'm so angry with the council's failures already. But there are many positives there. Reducing poverty, the measures are already legislated for. It's coming through. Respect orders come into force in October as well. So on tackling antisocial behaviour and some low-level crime that people put up with too often in this community, we'll see further action later this year, which, given what I see in my email and what people come here to raise, I'm optimistic on. But I'm equally aware that the Labour reform fight isn't the first and foremost here, although one of our polling districts, reform came first in this community, which not everyone will recognise, but is a real challenge. And I know on the back of seeing the stats, I know I have to do more to engage specifically in those postcode areas to make sure they understand what we are trying to do in government and to try and combat some of the disinformation that comes out, including from GB News, who have a very political agenda, broadcast media with a much more strident political and negative political agenda. That's, you know, I've got a job to do to make sure we communicate better here, but I don't feel that this is we're not on the front line with reform in this constituency, and the party has a bigger job, and I hope Andy gets this early, to communicate better directly to individuals. Something I've been doing as the London political lead is trying to make sure the party better communicates. We have a digital operation during election campaigns, but we don't do it the rest of the time, which is why Reform, Restore and all the right wing who invest all the time in it tend to have better traction, and it damages our polling consistently. If we want to challenge that, we need to be alive and fighting online in a way that the party and government haven't geared up to until now. So maybe a new leader will change that.
Good news.
Sounds like you've plenty of spirit to continue the fight.
I've always been a scrapper.
How do you switch off as we wind down this interview?
Well, it's funny you talk about the...
do you get out of Bermondsey off to...
I'm off to... Well, I relax here, but I'm going to Malaysia for a complete break, a digi-detox, 2 weeks holiday in summer. And reading is my one of my things. There's the...
what are you reading at the moment?
Apart
from reports and
so I was with Nick
emails.
Thomas Simmons last night for the start of the football, and told him I've got his Harold Wilson book to read.
Yes.
Is it River in the Sky? I've forgotten the name of the one. I finished it a couple of weeks ago. That's probably the best book I've read in a decade. A novel about water and rivers, but Bermondsey features. But it's it's a beautiful story. I'll send you a link so you can put it.
We'll put it in the notes.
Bottom of the
and you can be Neil's recommendation, top tips. I mean, even those sort of things, talking about communicating with the electorate and the constituents, is actually, I think there's an interest by constituents to know the people that they voted for or who's been elected, and things like, how do you switch off? Where do you go? Without revealing anything from a security perspective either.
Yeah.
and what motivates you, which is one of the reasons we want to do this series of conversations.
And walking the dog is another one.
Walking the dog.
And
you meet
it
other
is
dog
funny.
walkers, and then suddenly you end
The
up...
dog
What's
community
the
are
name?
funny.
How old are they?
But
Boy or
actually,
girl?
what makes me
Taking
laugh
the
is...
dog show?
No, it's when people see the dog and engage with the dog, and then eventually, because she's small, she can have a poo, eventually they go, oh, it's you. So look up gradually, and I'm at the end of the dog lead.
And last question for me, if you weren't Neil Coyle MP, what would you be doing?
I think,
Or what would you think you would do
Yeah, well, I was
post-Westminster?
director of a charity. I think I'd have been chief executive of a charity. And I've always enjoyed the campaigning side. And I tried to take that spirit into how I engage with ministers, like, you know, as the food bank group and police minister, and DEFRA and DWP ministers met this week. The policing minister met with the antisocial behaviour group that I chair in Parliament as well. So just try and take some of the aims and asks of those third sector organisations into government.
So very much on the welfare, providing
And community
essential
safety.
services.
Community safety as well, which is it doesn't get the media coverage that it warrants based on what we see here, but also what's in my inbox.
And even all the gentrification of Bankside and the South Bank of the last 25, 30 years, there's still a lot of deprivation as we all know.
Yeah, the child poverty levels here are shameful. And actually, Bridget Prent, the education secretary, came to a school round the back to launch £1 billion for young people's sports, right, here in Bermondsey. Not £1 billion for here, for the country. But
Decent chunk.
Certainly get re-elected.
She announced it, but she announced it on the site of Bill Sykes' murder in Oliver Twist. So you know, a community that has had poverty, you know,
That Dickens wrote about.
that Dickens was writing about,
And knew the area.
still has poverty, and I'm proud to be part of a government that is tackling that poverty. We are seeing the numbers come down already, and will continue to do so. I hope to be, you know, the last Labour government tried to eradicate completely child poverty. I hope to be part of a Labour government that does.
I think that's a good point to end on. Neil, thank you very much for joining this Living Conversations and for your candid and engaged conversations.
Thank you for inviting us in as well.
Thanks for coming in.
We kept
I'm
it
sorry it's so
cool.
hot. It's so hot. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I don't know if it will come across on the camera, but it really is.
Sure.
Our
sure
hair
it
and
will.
makeup bills. All well spent. But thank you very much. And so that's another wrap up from us from Living Conversations. Do comment and tweet on our, comment on our socials and spread the word. Thank you very much.
Thank you.